Doesn't give you a warm welcome. It just smacks you in the face and dares you to complain. 11 months gone, most of them in Kuwait with that Kabul airlift thrown in for extra trauma, and I came back smelling like jet fuel and sweat, my uniform sticking to me like old guilt. The driveway was the first punch to the gut. Just a plain concrete slab, no car, no shine, no chrome catching the light. Just a dark, ugly stain where my 2019 Camaro SS used to sit like a trophy. I stood there, staring at it, feeling stupid. I'd saved for that car for 3.5 years. Matte gray with black racing stripes I'd lined up myself in my buddy's garage, sweating through a Corpus summer for a perfect angle. The whole damn flight home, I pictured myself in that car, windows down, driving up Ocean Drive with the wind cutting through the last 11 months like it never happened. "Logan!" I shouted, slinging my ruck to the porch. The door creaked open and there he was, my little brother. 27 going on 17, hands deep in a hoodie pocket like he was cold in the middle of a Texas summer. He didn't say a word, just shuffled out with this look like I caught him sneaking in past curfew. "Where's my car?" I asked straight out. No welcome home, no handshake, just that. My voice was already sharp and I knew it, but I didn't care. He looked past me, like maybe a neighbor could bail him out. "It was just sitting, man." I did something practical. That's what he called it. He told me he sold it. "It was just sitting there. Burning insurance," he said, like that made him some kind of financial genius. Like watching my car collect dust was doing me a favor. Then came the line about bills, like that made it noble. "How much?" I asked. He actually squared his shoulders like he was proud. 900. I laughed, just once, hard and ugly like it came from someone else's throat. He flinched but didn't back down. "I used the power of attorney you signed before you deployed. So technically," he dragged that word out like it was a magic spell, "it's all legal." Right, legal, like that made it okay. "You used a POA meant for emergency stuff to pawn my Camaro?" I stepped closer, staring him down. "You think that's legal in here?" I tapped my chest. My heart was racing and I hadn't even been inside yet. That's when a white Audi pulled into the drive, quiet but deliberate. Woman stepped out, maybe late 30s, tan blazer with the sleeves rolled, clipboard in one hand and purpose in the other. Her ponytail didn't move in the wind. She looked like the kind of person who didn't waste time. "Staff Sergeant Caleb Morgan?" she asked. "That's me." "Captain Marissa Delgado, JAG Corps. I'm off duty, but I need to talk to you. Your brother used your name to sell a vehicle, your Camaro. I spotted the VIN flag during a title transfer while advising a soldier. I cross-checked your active duty status and placed a hold through Texas Department of Motor Vehicles and San Antonio Police Department. I have paperwork." She didn't even wait to be invited in, just walked toward the porch like she belonged there. Logan stepped back. His mouth opened like he was going to say something slick, but nothing came out. All the fake confidence just drained out of him. I stood there, still in uniform, boots on Texas concrete, watching my first morning home blow up before I even crossed the threshold. Captain Delgado stepped up into the house like she'd been there before. My mom held the screen door with both hands, squinting like she was trying to figure out who this woman was and why she was wearing authority like perfume. "Ma'am, I'm Captain Marissa Delgado with the JAG Corps. Your son's on active duty, and I'm here on his behalf," she said. My mom nodded like she understood, even though she clearly didn't, and stepped back to let her in. The captain laid the folder on the kitchen counter like it was evidence at trial, which, technically, it was. "This is what I pulled," she said, flipping open the cover and peeling back the tabs one by one. "First, here's the Craigslist ad where Logan listed the Camaro as his. You'll notice the photos. Those are from your driveway, VINs in frame." She slid the next tab over and pointed to the fake title transfer. "This document has Caleb's name printed and signed. But the signature, look at it. It matches neither his military ID nor the form he signed with the DMV before he left." I leaned over and looked, It wasn't even close. The loop on the G in Morgan was way too round. The C in Caleb was practically cursive. Looked like someone imitating a drunk version of me. She pulled out the bill of sale. "Buyer's signature matches mine," she said, "because I recorded the sale." Texas is a one-party consent state. I let Logan run his mouth on camera. Then I called him twice after to follow up and got him to admit to the whole thing again. My mom blinked like she couldn't even process what was in front of her. Logan shifted in the corner, arms crossed, staring at the floor like it might swallow him up. "The county hadn't processed the transfer yet," Delgado continued. "So I flagged the VIN with the SAPD Auto Theft Unit and CID at Fort Sam. The Camaro was recovered yesterday and is currently secured at the SAPD Evidence Impound." She paused, then looked directly at Logan. To keep the investigation clean, I told him I needed time to get financing. He gave me just enough rope. "Jesus," I muttered. She wasn't done. "He also attempted to get a title loan against your truck. It didn't go through because you'd filed an affidavit of non-use back in March, and you had an active duty fraud alert on your file. Good move, I didn't even remember doing that. Probably something a legal brief and pre-deployment training told me to check off. That might have saved me thousands." She kept going like she had the wind at her back. "He was also texting a man named Marco about test driving a Harley-Davidson motorcycle. Your name is on the registration. Good thing you moved it to Marco's storage unit before you left." "He never found it," Logan muttered. "It was just sitting there." Delgado didn't flinch. She just reached for another sheet in the folder. "These are 2 credit card applications in Caleb's name. Both denied for verification failures. The dates line up with the week the airlift hit its peak in Kabul." I stared at the paper and felt something crack behind my eyes. I was out there on the tarmac loading families, sweating through 12-hour shifts, while this fool was back home trying to open Chase and Amex accounts with my name. Delgado looked at me, then back at Logan. "He used the POA like a golden ticket. Limited power of attorney doesn't give you the right to impersonate a soldier. It's for emergencies, rent, utilities, medical, vehicle upkeep. Not this. He said it was for medical bills," my mom said, voice thin. Captain Delgado turned the folder so she could see the dates. "I have him on tape. No mention of bills, no mention of emergencies. He talked about ink and a PS5. He laughed. That's when I snapped. You took my car for $900 Logan. You weren't paying for a hospital visit. You were paying for that tattoo sleeve and a new console. That skull crawling out of your sleeve didn't come free." He tried to speak, but I raised my hand. I didn't want to hear another excuse from him. Not one more syllable. My mom sank into one of the kitchen chairs. Hard, like someone had taken her knees out from under her. She looked at the folder like it might bite her if she reached for it. "He needed help," she said, staring down at her hands. I thought I was helping. "No," I said. "You were covering." "That's what you've been doing." Captain Delgado stood still for a moment, letting that land before she flipped one last page. "You've got 3 options," she said, looking at me. 1, we press charges, wire fraud, forgery, identity theft. 2, civil suit for full value of the vehicle and damages. 3, keep working my plan and try to bring down the bigger ring he got mixed up with. Your Camaro was almost flipped to a known reseller on consignment. Logan lifted his chin like he was ready to argue. "It's a family matter. This doesn't need the law involved." I turned and pointed at the Camaro-shaped hole in the driveway. "You made it legal when you forged my name and sold my property. You made it criminal when you tried to grab the truck. And you made it personal when you tried to pretend like I wouldn't find out." I looked right at him, and for the first time since I got home, I didn't feel anything but cold. I was over there pulling kids out of blast zones while you were back here stealing from me. You used that POA like a cheat code because you knew I couldn't fight back from 10 time zones away. My mom didn't say a word. She just stared at the folder. Captain Delgado closed it with a soft snap, then looked at me. "We go full legal, we go tactical, or we go both. Your call." I nodded once, jaw locked tight. I didn't know if I wanted revenge or justice, but I sure as hell wasn't walking away. The next morning, I rode shotgun with Captain Delgado to the SAPD vehicle storage facility. Lot was dead quiet, just chain-link fences, floodlights that stayed on too long, and a smell like battery acid and burnt rubber. I signed the evidence release log with a pen chained to the counter. My name looked strange on paper again, and there it was. My Camaro sat under buzzing fluorescent lights, dust settling across the hood like time itself had stopped. Tires were half flat, paint dulled, but I'd know that shape in a blizzard. I walked up slow, put my hand on the hood, and felt something twist in my gut. Not anger, not even grief, just disappointment with sharp edges. I didn't cry or say anything out loud, just stood there with my palm flat on the metal, realizing I'd spent more time dreaming about this moment than I wanted to admit. It wasn't about the car. It was about the idea that something might still be exactly where I left it. An impound tech in a faded blue shirt rolled it forward, and we popped the hood. Oil was dark, sticky, overdue by at least 1,000 miles. Coolant was low. Brake fluid looked like someone poured it from a fryer. The rear tires were bald on the inside. Burnouts, probably. Someone showing off without the skills to back it up. I opened the glove box. Inside was my spare set of house keys, a pawn tag with my name barely still on it, for a black Epiphone Les Paul I'd dragged back from El Paso, and an SD card. Small red label, exactly like the one I'd slid into the dashcam the year before I deployed. Captain Delgado gave me a look. I nodded. We didn't need to talk about what we were hoping to find. We both already knew. Back at her office, she popped the card into her desktop, and the files loaded like they'd just been waiting. No password, no encryption, just raw footage, time-stamped and silent at first. We watched Logan slide into the driver's seat with that same snake-neck guy riding shotgun. He revved the engine like it was his, music blasting. They peeled out on Staples Street, cut lanes without blinkers, raced a white Charger through 3 lights, then laughed while filling the tank, my tank, with my debit card. That same guy popped up in multiple clips, tattoo across the neck, black hoodie, gold chain. Always around Logan, always touching something that didn't belong to him. Captain didn't blink. "That's Deacon Rivas," she said. "Southside Motors. He flips cars on consignment. Sometimes flips paperwork too. He's on our radar for another case." "Figures," I muttered. Logan probably thinks he's his business mentor. We sat there a few more minutes, watching clip after clip. The Camaro in places I'd never driven it. Flashing cash in the console. Some girl I didn't know crawling into the back seat with a drink in her hand. She paused the feed and looked over at me. "You ready to go full bore on this?" I didn't hesitate. We're past half measures. There was no yelling in my voice. I didn't need to scream it. I was just tired. Tired in the way sand makes your bones feel heavier. Tired like a man who'd already held more weight than he wanted to bring home. We packed everything. SD card, photos from her sting, printed documents from the folder, and drove straight to San Antonio to the FBI's white-collar division. Office was clean, cold, with that bland government smell, old HVAC and fresh toner. A younger guy in a shirt too big for him met us in the conference room and asked me to start from the top. I gave him names, dates, everything I remembered. I explained the POA, the timeline, why Logan had access to my mail, how I trusted him to handle a few simple things while I was gone. I kept it straight, didn't spin it dramatic. Just the truth, lined up like ammo on a belt. Delgado passed over the SD card and explained the footage. She didn't sell it, just let it speak for itself. The agent watched part of a clip where Logan was flexing like he was running his own dealership and jotted something in his notebook without saying a word. When we stepped back outside, it was already pushing noon. I leaned against the railing in the garage structure, the smell of exhaust drifting past us from the lower level. Delgado stood next to me, arms crossed, eyes on the cars rolling by. "My older brother served in Iraq in 2006, she said. Came home to find his girlfriend sold his bike and gave his dog to a neighbor." Nobody lifted a finger. Said it was a domestic issue. I didn't say anything. Just waited. She glanced over. That's when I decided I'd be the person who does. I didn't have a clever reply. I was thinking about the ramp at HKIA, the noise, the tension, the crush of people trying to get through wire. I remembered the look on a little girl's face when she got through with her dad, like her lungs could breathe again. And then I thought about my own front porch, my driveway, my Camaro missing, my brother lying with his hands in his pockets like I was the one who owed him answers. The whiplash was real, and I couldn't explain it without swearing 6 ways to Sunday. We drove back to Corpus mostly in silence. I didn't need her to say anything, and she respected that. She just kept her eyes on the road, her hands steady, and let me sit with the weight of it. When we got back, the Camaro was parked in a holding spot at a buddy's garage. I told him to keep it quiet for now. I didn't want Logan seeing it and spinning a new lie. Delgado pulled up a checklist: chain of custody, impound follow-up, and next steps. She handed it to me without a word. I folded it and stuck it in my back pocket. "Thanks," I said finally. She nodded once. "We're just getting started." And she wasn't wrong. 2 days later, we were parked 2 cars down from a busted-up chain-link lot off Agnes and Port, staring at a faded Southside Motors sign hanging crooked, like it gave up years ago. Captain Delgado sat behind the wheel, calm like it was just another Tuesday. Me? I was chewing the inside of my cheek and sweating through my collar, even with the AC on blast. CID had wired her up before we left the office. Tiny mic clipped under her collar, recorder tucked inside her purse. She looked over at me as she pulled her hair back tighter. "You good?" she asked. "I'm not going to jump out," I said. "But if he swings, I'm not sitting still." "Fair." She adjusted the rear view and picked up her phone. Logan's already on site. Deacon's on his way. I leaned back in the passenger seat and slid on my shades. I wasn't nervous, just keyed up. That feeling you get when you know something's about to break and you don't know where the first crack will start. The lot looked like every small-time hustle in South Texas. Sun-bleached prayer flags strung between light poles, old tires stacked like makeshift walls, and a rusted trailer doubling as an office. Some kid was detailing a Honda with a bucket of brown water and no shirt. Deacon Rivas showed up 10 minutes later in a silver Ram with tinted windows and an attitude. He stepped out carrying a spiral notebook and grinning like he'd seen this movie before and liked how it ended. Slicked back hair, too much chain, and that same damn snake tattoo curling up his neck like a warning label. "Yo," he said to Logan. "This the one?" "Yeah," Logan said, stepping forward like he owned the air around him. "She's looking for something clean. Military discount. Real discreet." Deacon nodded, flipping open his notebook. "Here's how we'll do it. I got a title guy down in Mission who can move paper without fingerprints. Everything's third party, names don't cross. We use a transfer service. No DMV headaches. Like a pizza delivery. One slice at a time." Captain gave a casual nod like she'd heard this all before. "And the VIN scrub?" "Handled. I send it through Laredo if it's hot. They find it again in a week, clean title in hand. I shifted in my seat, fingers digging into my thighs. He went on, like he was proud of it. "You give me the keys and bill of sale, I move it on consignment, 20% cut for me, $200 cash to a clerk at the DMV who owes me a few, then I pay a guy to file a lost title affidavit if needed. Whole process is tight." Never had a bounce. Captain adjusted her purse strap and leaned in a little. "What about military blocks?" Deacon chuckled. "That's what the affidavit's for. As long as it ain't active repo, I can spin it. Gotta know how to talk, that's all." That's when Logan, in full stupid mode, decided to open his mouth wider than necessary. I already flipped one Camaro from my brother. Military guy, active duty. Found a buyer who didn't give a damn about war stories. She just liked the look. Captain tilted her head. "No issues with the paperwork?" "Nah," Logan laughed. "Used his POA. Legal enough. Got 900 out of it. Should have gone higher, but hey, sold is sold." I stared through the windshield like I could burn a hole in it. I wanted to rip the door open and drag him by the collar to the nearest squad car, But I didn't move. Not yet. Deacon laughed with him. 900? You gave that away, man. I know, Logan said, scratching his neck. But I was short on rent and needed ink. Priorities. Captain's hand moved under her purse, flipping the switch on the recorder. That meant the key details had been said. Cut, process, method, motive. Now it was just about the links. Then Deacon dropped the line that snapped everything into place. Next time we'll run it through Laredo. Cleaner that way. I got a guy there who moves bikes too. No questions. Captain's body stiffened. Not visibly, but I felt it. Laredo meant one thing: crossing state and federal lines. That pushed it from small-time auto fraud into federal trafficking territory, which meant our case just got bigger, whether Logan realized it or not. Deacon's phone buzzed, and he stepped away to answer. He didn't walk far, just around the front of the Ram. We heard him say, "Yeah, Cade Booker said he'd be good with Monday. Tell him I'll have the red one ready." Captain's eyes flicked to her phone. One fast text, nothing else. I glanced behind us and saw a sedan parked under the taco stand canopy. FBI surveillance. They'd been listening the whole time, building a case around this crew. And now we were right in the middle of it. "Cade Booker," she whispered. "That's the guy in the bigger file." I kept my voice low. "We pulling the plug now?" "Not yet. I need Deacon to finish the pitch. Then we go." I looked at Logan, standing there like he was some street hustle kingpin. Elbows out, flexing stories he didn't earn. He had no idea how far over his head he was. And I wasn't going to be the one to save him from it. Deacon came back and closed his notebook. "So we good? You want me to check her bike tomorrow?" Captain smiled. "Let me talk to her." "We'll call you tonight." They fist bumped like they just split a check at Chili's. As soon as they pulled off, Captain turned the key and reversed out clean. No rush, no flashing lights. Just steady, professional retreat. I exhaled for the first time in what felt like an hour. She didn't say anything for a minute. Just drove. Then, we got it all. The method, the price, the network, and Logan's ego on full display. I looked straight ahead. I wanted to slam his face into the hood. I know, but I didn't. You did better. She made the turn onto the freeway and merged without pause. "We'll prep the file for federal referral," she said. "Once they confirm Cade's involvement, Logan's in with a ring. That means conspiracy. That means bigger charges." I stared out at the endless flat stretch of Texas ahead of us. "You think he even realizes what he's walked into?" I asked. "No," she said, "but he will." And that was enough, for now. The takedown didn't feel like TV. No sirens, no shouting. No one hit the ground screaming for a lawyer. Just plain jackets, calm voices, firm instructions. The FBI boxed in the lot like they were moving chess pieces, not men. Deacon went down easy, flat against the hood of a red Civic with his arms behind his back like he'd been there before. Logan didn't run. He just stood there frozen, hands halfway to his sides like he wasn't sure if he should act surprised or brave. Then he looked up and saw me across the asphalt, sitting inside Captain Delgado's car, passenger door cracked for air. He didn't say anything right away, just stared. Then he said my name, like I'd just betrayed him in some life-altering way. "Caleb." He didn't yell it, just said it, like I'd pulled the trigger. I didn't blink. At home that night, the air smelled like enchiladas, grease and cheese cutting through the tension like it was supposed to matter. My mom stirred sauce like she was performing a ritual that could rewind the day. She didn't speak until she sat down. "Are you pressing charges?" she asked. I looked across the table. Yes, I already did. She didn't react right away, just pressed her napkin to her lips and stared at the corner of the table. I added, "It's felony level. Wire fraud, identity theft, the Camaro, the title loan, the credit attempts. This wasn't a mistake. It was a plan." She exhaled slow, nodded once, and wiped her eyes with a dish towel she didn't need. My phone buzzed during cleanup. It was my aunt, voice sharp out the gate. "You're ruining this family over a car. What kind of man sends his own brother to jail?" "I've carried stretchers with men younger than Logan on them," I said. "He's a grown man who stole." "You want to blame someone. Blame the one who lied." I didn't wait for a reply. I hung up. Captain texted that night. "Good work today. Not easy." I stared at the screen, thumb hovering, then typed back, "Didn't feel like work. Felt like cutting a rope." I set the phone down and didn't touch it again until morning. The next day started early. 2 detectives showed up in plain clothes, but the badge around the neck made it formal. I sat at the dining room table with the same folder Captain had built, walked them through the credit card apps, the forged title, the pawn slip, the attempted loan, every ugly piece of it. "How long you planning to stay in town?" one of them asked. I looked him dead in the eye. "As long as it takes." They nodded and packed up their notes. No judgment, just the job. Later that afternoon, I drove the Camaro to the self-serve wash bay behind the old Valero on Saratoga, sprayed the soap thick, and let it sit longer than necessary. Watched grime run off in streaks, like something being rinsed off my own spine. Then I pulled it into my buddy's garage and swapped the oil myself, replaced the rear tires with fresh treads, and vacuumed the interior until the rubber mats stopped smelling like cigarettes and bad choices. It didn't fix anything, but it helped, like getting one small piece of myself to listen again. That night, the house was quiet. No TV, no music, just the kind of silence that waits for you to notice it. My phone rang around 9. Unknown. Inmate call. I let it buzz. He left a voicemail. "You did this," Logan said, his voice flat. "You let them take me. You chose strangers over your own blood." I sat with it for a second. Then I played it again. My mom heard it from the hallway. She didn't say anything until it finished. Then she asked, "Can I have the folder?" I handed it over. She took it into the living room and laid it on the coffee table next to her Bible and said, "I'm showing this to Pastor Green." That was the end of the conversation. I tried to sleep, but my head wouldn't settle. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, breathing through something tight in my chest. I could smell jet fuel again, even though there wasn't any. The kind that hangs in your nose after too many hours on the ramp, too many C-17s loaded with chaos. At 2 a.m., I got up and walked the kitchen in the dark. Didn't turn on the lights, just moved slow, barefoot across cold tile, listening to the creaks in the walls like they had something to say. I made coffee even though I didn't want any. Poured it into the mug my mom always used, the one with the chipped handle and faded scripture. Set it down on the table before she woke up. I didn't leave a note. Didn't need to. That cup was my way of saying, I still live here, even if the idea of here has changed, even if some pieces of it got stolen and couldn't be cleaned. My mom found the mug I'd left out. She didn't say anything about it, just poured her coffee like it was any other day. We sat at the table together, but nothing was the same anymore. The weeks turned into months. The FBI case got adopted federally, which Captain said was a win, meant heavier charges, real oversight, no risk of it getting lost at the county level. The U.S. attorney made Logan an offer: plead guilty to wire fraud and aggravated identity theft, or we'd see him in court with the whole folder in hand. He took the deal. I sat in the back row of the courtroom during the plea hearing, suit jacket stiff across my shoulders, hair trimmed, hands folded so I wouldn't fidget. Logan didn't look back. He stood there in the same wrinkled jail-issued beige he'd worn to his first arraignment and answered the judge like a teenager caught with a vape pen. Yes, Your Honor. Yes, I understand. Yes, I agree to the terms. When she asked if he knew he'd be responsible for full restitution, he mumbled a yes so soft the court reporter had to ask him to repeat it. The judge didn't look angry. She looked tired, like she'd seen too many sons like Logan, too many cases where family got used like a crowbar instead of a bond. Mr. Morgan, she said, voice even. You exploited legal protections designed to safeguard deployed service members. That's not just dishonest. That's deliberate. And it matters. His attorney tried one last Hail Mary, asked if Logan could serve part of the time in community corrections. Some halfway house nonsense. The judge shook her head once. Sharp. Request denied. Sentencing came later that summer. Same courtroom, same tone. 46 months federal time. A restitution order for $41,500. The overlapping state forgery and impersonation charges got dropped once the federal plea locked in. That's how the system works. Stack the bigger ones, clear the calendar. Outside the courtroom, in a hallway that smelled like coffee and floor wax, my mom stood with her purse clutched tight. She didn't cry. She didn't plead. She just leaned into me and said, "I love both my sons." I nodded. "I know. Loving him doesn't mean I don't love you." I looked her in the eyes. Loving him doesn't mean he gets to do it twice. That was the end of it. Captain Delgado met me downstairs, holding a thin envelope and a clipboard. "This is your rebuild kit," she said. "Credit freezes, fraud alerts, DMV flags, toll dispute forms. Start here." Then the VA. She paused, tilting her head. "How's the hearing?" "Comes and goes," I said. "Mostly ringing, especially at night." "Abbey Gate, right?" I nodded. "File the claim," she said. "Don't wait till it's worse." I took the envelope without argument. Maybe that was growth. After that, I dropped the Camaro off at a garage my buddy Reese recommended. Some little spot on airs run by a guy named Miguel, who didn't ask questions and didn't overcharge. $800 and change for the full job. Fluids, belts, plugs, sensors, tires, torqued to spec. When I picked it up 3 days later, it purred like it remembered how to be mine. I took it straight down to Mustang Island and parked near the dunes. Left the engine running and the windows cracked. Sat there in the driver's seat just watching the water. Salt air in my nose, sweat on the back of my neck, and a breeze that felt clean for once. I wasn't thinking about Logan, or the money, or court. I was thinking about the things that stay, and the things that don't. On the way back through town, I stopped at La Taqueria on Leopard and grabbed carne guisada for my mom, then picked up an extra plate for Captain Delgado. She was working late again, lights still on in the corner office when I walked in. I set the plate on her desk with a sticky note. "Thanks. You were right to go full bore." She looked up from a file and smiled, that same tired half smile that meant she wasn't going to say anything sentimental. "You didn't owe me this," she said. "I feel like I did." She didn't argue. On the drive home, I kept the music low and the windows cracked. I didn't speed. I didn't check the mirror 100 times. The Camaro hummed under me like it was glad to be useful again, like it was finally carrying the right weight. When I pulled into the driveway, I didn't stare at the oil scar anymore. It was still there, faint but not gone. I let it stay. Let it remind me what happens when you trust the wrong person with your keys. The envelope was thin and came from the North Texas Toll Authority. I knew it wasn't good the second I saw my name above an address I hadn't listed on anything in 3 years. Opened it standing at the counter. Tolls on 183A, charges stretching from Cedar Park to Liberty Hill, 5 trips in 2 weeks. I hadn't driven there. Hell, I hadn't even left the city limits since picking the Camaro up from the shop. I texted Captain Delgado. She called 2 minutes later. "These things take a while to shake loose," she said. "He used your plates. DMV's still slow to flag it, even with the hold." Next morning, I spent an hour and a half on the phone with a rep named Cheryl, who sounded like she'd rather be anywhere else. She walked me through the license plate match, let me read off the plate photos one by one. "That's not me," I said. "Car was recovered. I have the SAPD report number if you want it." She didn't push back, just sighed. "We'll submit the affidavit and attach your case ID. It should clear within 48 hours. It took 2. One less rock in the boot." That afternoon, I followed up on an old pawn slip that had resurfaced in one of Logan's old texts. One I'd forwarded to the detective months ago, but never got confirmation on. The shop it traced back to had cleared the inventory. but the name matched a vendor out at the flea market on Ayers. I drove over. The sun hit hard off the hoods of parked cars, the kind of heat that makes you question how bad you really want closure. The flea market smelled like churros, dust, and too much cologne. I walked past rows of bootleg DVDs, plastic bins of junk, and knockoff phone cases until I saw a folding table covered in tangled cords and small electronics. The guy behind the table was wiping sweat off his head with a Taco Bell napkin. There it was, my old amp. Black casing, dented corner, still had the faded sticker from Marco's garage. Next to it, a beat-up Nikon with a broken strap. And beside that, my tablet. Still had the Army Air Assault sticker I'd slapped on the back after Rucker. I didn't make a scene. "How much for all three?" I asked, pulling out my wallet. "Bundle?" $380, the guy said, squinting like he was trying to gauge if I was going to haggle. I peeled off the bills, handed them over, then casually pulled out my phone and snapped 3 quick photos, his face, the table layout, and the items together. Then I took my gear, nodded once, and walked straight back to the Camaro. That night, I emailed the photos to the detective with a timestamp and brief note. "Found 'em. Paid to get 'em back. Here's proof." He replied 2 hours later, "Thanks. Logging it. Case is still open." At home, I plugged in the tablet. Battery was almost dead, but once it charged enough to open, I started clicking through the gallery out of habit. Most of it was junk. Logan's screenshots, blurry photos, junk memes. Then I hit a folder called Rivas. Inside was one photo that stopped me. Logan and Deacon, arms over each other's shoulders, grill smoke in the background, both holding bottles and grinning like they'd just won a prize. The timestamp? 4 days after my deployment ceremony. I printed it and slipped it into the folder. Didn't even hesitate. At night, I kept going back to the dash cam videos. I'd load a clip and let it play in the background while I folded laundry or ran the dishwasher. I hated watching them. Hated hearing Logan's voice filling the car like it was his. But I needed to see it. Needed to keep the story from softening in my head. I didn't want to rewrite it as a bad time or a rough patch. It was theft and betrayal. That folder wasn't optional. It was armor. My mom started packing boxes the next morning. Said the house felt haunted. "I keep hearing his voice in the hallway," she said, sealing a box full of dishes. "I want to be near my sister." Victoria's quieter. "And Lisa doesn't call you names. I told her I'd rent the truck and drive it myself." I loaded the heavy stuff, handled the U-Haul paperwork, and made sure her new apartment had working locks and a clean fridge. She didn't say thank you out loud. She made me enchiladas that night in a pan she'd just unpacked. Captain called the next day while I was tightening down straps on the trailer. "They pulled Cade Booker," she said. "Separate warrant, narcotics. The ring was bigger than we thought. You helped lock in the paper trail." "Good," I said. "Hope it sticks." "It will." Your case gave us the structure, the pattern. We finally saw how Deacon was sliding things through. I didn't need a medal. Just wanted to know the work meant something. That week, I started running again. Not far. Just around the block at first. My legs felt like stone. My lungs hated me. But the air hurt good. Felt like earning something, even if it was just 1 mile without stopping. 1 full night of sleep without jet fuel in my nose. 1 cup of coffee without the shakes. The Camaro stayed out front, always facing the street, clean and still. I started to trust it again. I wasn't ready to trust much else. My aunt called it a backyard barbecue, like that was supposed to fix things. Like ribs and folding chairs and half-warm soda could erase indictments and broken trust. I went because my mom asked, not because I wanted to hear everyone's version of the story. I parked on the street, kept the Camaro where no one could touch it, and walked in with my arms crossed, jaw tight, boots dragging through patchy grass. They were all already there. Paper plates, plastic cups, someone yelling about the Cowboys like it was still preseason. Nobody said, "Thank you for your service." That wasn't this kind of gathering. My Uncle Gene was the first to try it. He sat down next to me with a Coors and said, "You know how brothers are. Boys will be boys, right?" I looked at him and said, "Would you lend me your truck and title for a weekend? Just hand it over, no questions asked." He snorted, "Of course not." Exactly. He didn't say much after that. A woman I didn't recognize, maybe a cousin's girlfriend or a neighbor, asked me if I felt bad. "Sending your own brother to prison?" she said, lips pursed like she was fishing for a crack in my armor. I didn't blink. He sent himself. My tone stayed flat. I was done auditioning for understanding. I stood near the edge of the yard, leaning against the side of the house where the wind carried the smoke away. I watched kids I didn't know run barefoot through the grass, like they weren't overhearing every adult conversation. My cousin Brandon found me by the cooler. He looked nervous, like he was about to confess something. "I just thought you should know," he said, lowering his voice. "Logan borrowed money from me. Told me he'd pay it back once your deployment checks came in." I stared at him. "How much?" $500. He said you were letting him manage stuff while you were gone." He looked embarrassed, like it was his fault for trusting blood. "He wasn't just stealing from me," I said. "He was spreading it around." Brandon nodded. "You're not the only one who's mad. Some of them just don't know what to say. I didn't need them to say anything. I told my mom that later when we got home. Let people think what they want," I said. "You don't have to defend me." She opened her mouth like she was going to argue, then shut it and just nodded. I could tell it weighed on her, but I wasn't going to carry her guilt for her. Captain Delgado stopped by 2 days later with papers in a thick envelope. She had a tight ponytail and a stack of forms already pre-filled. "This is a restitution lien on Logan's future wages," she said. "This one's the civil judgment for the car. Full value, $26,800. He can't bankruptcy his way out of either." She handed me a pen. I signed both. No hesitation. We sat on the porch afterward, both holding cold bottles of water, sweat sliding down our backs under the afternoon heat. She asked me, "What do you want next?" I didn't have a flashy answer. "Something that doesn't make me feel like a ghost," I said. "Something outside. Real work. No badge. No desk." She reached into her back pocket and pulled out a folded flyer. "City's water department is hiring crew leads. Pays honest, not fancy. But it's yours to earn." I took it, looked it over. It was just paper and bullet points, but it felt like something solid. Next morning, I filled out the application at the kitchen table. Wrote "veteran" in the experience box like it might mean something to someone. It felt strange asking for a chance. Felt like I was 17 again, filling out fast food apps and praying for callbacks. Before bed that night, I was cleaning out the glove box in the Camaro, checking for anything that still smelled like Logan. I found a gas receipt dated the week I bought it. Regular unleaded, $34 and change. I held it in my hand for a long minute. Then I stuck it to the visor with a paper clip. Not as some sentimental keepsake, but because it reminded me I used to be good at building something slow. The next day, my mom and I started prepping the house to list. She wanted to be closer to her sister, somewhere quiet. I walked the hall, pulling nails from old photo frames and bubble wrapping anything with glass. In the living room, I stood in front of the photo of my dad in his dress blues, the one that hung above the TV since I was a kid. I pulled it down gently and wrapped it in one of my old shirts, then set it in a box marked "Fragile" in block letters. Not everything in that house was broken, but enough was. I was wiping down the Camaro with a fresh coat of wax when Captain texted me the link. No caption, just the article, and a thumbs up. 9 indicted in Texas title transfer fraud ring. Deacon Rivas took a plea deal and rolled, just like she said he would. The indictments stretched across 5 counties. They even tagged someone from a title office in Laredo. I read it twice, not for shock, but to feel the ground hold under me. For once, the hammer landed where it should. A week later, I drove to San Antonio in a city truck borrowed from the new job. Stood in a side room at the federal building, reading from a plain sheet of paper in front of a court recorder and 2 agents. "You thought soldiers are easy pickings when they're gone," I said. "We aren't." That was all. Didn't need to dress it up. The truth didn't need adjectives. 2 days after that, I got a call from the water department HR rep. She said they liked my directness and wanted to know when I could start. The interview had been quick. The foreman asked me how I handle stress. I moved people in planes through a war zone while eating once a day and sleeping on concrete, I said. I'll figure out your valve wrench. He nodded, scratched his neck, and didn't ask anything else. I started the next week. Early mornings, city trucks, crew leaders named Reese and Colt who didn't care where you'd been, only if you knew how to shut off a main without flooding a yard. They didn't ask questions. They asked if I wanted breakfast tacos and if I had a socket set. That was enough. Some days we barely talked, just worked. Shovels, rusted pipe, cracked pavement. It felt good to sweat in peace. Honest blisters. No courtrooms. No folders. One afternoon I got a letter. Beaumont Federal Correctional Facility. It was from Logan. Said he was finding God and wanted to talk like men. Said he missed home. Said he hoped I could forgive him someday. I read it once and set it under my coffee mug for a week. After that, I slid it into the bottom drawer of my desk and didn't answer. Not because I wanted him to suffer, but because silence was the only boundary he seemed to understand. When my mom closed on her new place in Victoria, I drove the truck up myself, carried boxes, hooked up the TV, changed the deadbolt and made sure the windows locked. She cooked chicken and rice and held on to me a little longer than usual when I left. "Thank you for not giving up on me," she said. "I didn't," I told her. "I just had to stop giving up on myself." Wednesday nights I started showing up at the legal aid clinic. Captain Delgado was there more than her job required, printing forms, coaching volunteers. At first I stayed in the back, fixing broken printers and updating virus software no one else wanted to deal with. "You could sit in with clients," she said one evening, handing me a clipboard. "Just listen. Most of them just need someone to explain things plain." "I'm not good at soft," I said. "That's not what they need." I told her I'd think about it. One weekend I took the Camaro to a shop and had the stripes removed. Felt like peeling off someone else's story. I added a better alarm system, replaced the stereo, and swapped out the floor mats. Not because I thought it'd get stolen again, because I needed to know I could change something and make it better. Some nights I drove up to the causeway, parked facing the water, and just sat there. I wasn't looking for meaning. I wasn't waiting for peace to knock on the window. I just liked the quiet that didn't punch back. My phone didn't buzz as much anymore. No cousins looking for updates. No relatives wanting to talk. It was its own kind of peace. No noise, no opinions, just space. And I was finally learning how to live in it. I'm telling you this now as a man in my early 40s, not to stir it up again, not for sympathy, and sure as hell not because I want to relive it. I'm saying it out loud so it stays sharp, so I don't forget what really happened and let it get smoothed over by time or guilt or other people's excuses. Back then, I was 36, just back from that mess in Kabul. Ribs still tight from the adrenaline. Boots still full of dust and jet fuel that didn't wash out even after 3 showers. People picture homecomings with flags and signs and hugs in the airport. Mine had none of that. Mine had a silent driveway, a dark stain on the concrete, and a Camaro-sized hole where my car used to be. My own brother sold it for $900 while I was checking babies and grandmothers for papers by flashlight on the ramp in a combat zone. We didn't fix it with a talk. We fixed it with paperwork. A folder thick enough to hurt if you dropped it on your foot. A captain who knew the law and didn't flinch. A recorder that caught every word. And a legal system that for once worked the way it was supposed to. Logan got 46 months. He does his time in Beaumont. Sends a Christmas card every year with a Bible verse underlined in blue ink. I don't write back. I don't send it back either. There's no hate left in me. But there's also no space for him anymore. It's not silence out of spite. It's just a boundary I can live with. Restitution comes in monthly slices. $62 here, $41 there, like drips from a leaky faucet. But I set up the liens. He can't skip it. He can't duck it. And it's not about the money anymore. It's about the math of consequences. You take something, you pay it back. Simple. The ring that pulled him in, the guys with the fake VINs and title games, went down harder than I expected. Captain told me my dashcam footage helped stitch together timelines, names, handoffs. I didn't feel proud about that. Didn't feel heroic. I just felt relieved. Maybe the next guy won't come home to an empty driveway. My mom lives quiet now. Small place in Victoria. Flowers on the windowsill. A back porch with a hummingbird feeder and no questions. We talk on Sundays. Keep it short. Weather, church potlucks, how her tomatoes are doing. We don't say Logan's name much, and that's fine. She loves both her sons. I believe her. I also believe that loving someone doesn't mean you protect them from consequences. I kept the Camaro. Still drive it every Saturday. Always after I wash it myself. No auto detailer. Just me, a bucket, a rag, and a playlist I don't skip through. I don't drive fast. I don't blast the radio. I take it slow around the bayfront, windows cracked, engine purring like it forgave me for leaving it behind. It's not about the car. Never really was. It's about keeping a promise to myself that not everything gets taken. Not everything gets written off as life. I still help out at the legal aid clinic when I can. I hand out checklists like the one Captain gave me. Credit freezes, fraud alerts, DMV locks, title steps. I tell young guys deploying to lock their crap down tight and never assume family means safe. They nod, distracted, thinking about chow or gear. Same way I used to nod. That's fine. I plant the seed. This wasn't a revenge story. No one got dragged across a courtroom in handcuffs to applause. No dramatic speeches, just the boring, steady work of pressing charges, showing up, telling the truth without screaming, and not letting blood excuse betrayal. That's the only ending I could live with. The one I built for myself, the one I kept. Would you press charges if your sibling sold your car using your name? Comment your take, even a good story works. And please like and subscribe. One click for you, but helps us a lot.
YouTube picked this for you. Tap it. Let's see if they guessed right.